And we're live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is another episode of Knowledge and Action for American Imams Academy. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today we have our guest, brother Mohamad Kibria. He is the Mass Youth National Director. How are you doing, brother?
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Doing well. How are you, Ishmael?
I'm doing well. Alhamdulillah. So glad to have you here with us. We said, you're the Mass Youth National Director. Tell us a little bit more about that. What do you do, and what's your experience working for Mass?
All right. So getting right to it.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Hey, so first of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and blessing be upon our beloved Muhammad. I hope everyone is having a blessed Ramadan, inshallah. So currently, I'm holding the position of Mass Youth National Director. So my main responsibility and kind of job description is to work with Mass chapters, youth chapters. We have about a good 15 to 17 chapters that are pretty active, then we have the top 5 for those. So my responsibility is to actually engage with the youth directors, provide resources, trainings, of course, hold some of the Tarbiyah and Ilm camps. So those camps are pretty famous with Mass members. Initiate and engage with those. Just become a resource and development provider in a way as much as possible, working with these youth workers and youth directors to empower them, bridge gap between them. One of the things we do is when I visit chapters, my goal is to understand the institutional challenges. Like, for example, and a lot of people are not familiarized perhaps with how nonprofit world works. The resources is scarce, right? So especially human resource. You have a lot of the organizations work with volunteers, and some of the challenges with volunteers are, of course, it's not full time; it's volunteer capacity. So my goal is to understand what is the capacity of organization, right? I mean, recently I was talking to I'm putting an organization together where we're focusing and doing some research on how much does community spend in resource and development for youth, right? And you find that's another discussion to talk about. But going back to my job description, just connecting with the organizations and working with the youth directors, encouraging them, empowering them, giving them resource tools, and collaborating some of the chapters, because sometimes one chapter is doing something and another chapter is doing the same thing, and they're not connecting. So my goal is to kind of bridge that gap, inshallah, and empower and move forward.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. And you started when working for Mass?
I joined Mass about last August last year. So it's relatively a new position for me to oversee that many chapters. So yeah, about last year.
Mm-hmm. So prior to Mass Youth, what were you doing before then?
So originally, a little bit to the background how I got into this work. So I studied criminal justice originally, right? I'm supposed to investigate. Right now, I'm investigating youth.
Am I a criminal?
So typical Desi, and I was involved in my community a lot in terms of youth work. We started ION organization. In our ION organization, we started Youth of Ummah, YOU. Very few of my friends, we got together like, hey, let's just do youth work, and we started a program called Fast and Learn, and that's kind of like our journey began in terms of doing youth work. And we're doing silly videos on YouTube, and at that time, like I'm talking 2006, 2007 ish. I started coming back to the dean. There's another transformation that took place personally, and I just got involved with the youth work. I was able to relate to the challenges. I was one of those lost, soul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided me, literally took me out of the trash can and like, all right, here you go, work for me. So it was a transformative process. And then I moved to Virginia about like maybe 10 years ago, and I was involved in Mass work in the Mass chapter in DC here.
Mm-hmm.
And alhamdulillah, there was an opportunity that opened at Dar Hijra Islamic Center. And I just, I never thought about doing this full time. I always make du'as like, I wish I had an opportunity to do this full time, because the corporate world was not for me, because I got into IT eventually, typical Desi.
Yeah.
And subhanAllah, like Allah just like gave me the right opportunity. I just left the corporate world for a while. So let me just do this. Let me just test it out.
Mm-hmm.
Man, since 2014, I never went back. Alhamdulillah, I've been working full-time youth director. So I was in Dar Hijra Islamic Center in Virginia. Alhamdulillah. So I was working there for a good 5 years. And then Mass National came through and offered me a position at a national level.
MashaAllah. So what was it like going from corporate world what was kind of going through your head to make that kind of jump? Yeah.
Man, I was like, I guess I was really excited to jump into the community work, right? Like dawah work, and you feel like all fired up inside, and you get like so emotionally invested in everything that you do. You put programs together, you have halakas, you're doing marketing, flyer, everything like all hand. It was a big shift. I never felt like I worked for a day, honestly. Like I was pulling maybe like 70, 80 hours a week, and I didn't even realize it. I enjoyed it. Like I
SubhanAllah.
enjoyed it so much.
SubhanAllah. That's
Like
amazing.
I wanted to be there in the halakha. I wanted to be, in that event. And like a lot of youth directors don't realize like how fun this job is. Sometimes like they take it really serious. Like sometimes I assess the youth directors as like, I think you're taking this job like literal. Sometimes it's just, enjoying the moment and being real about things, right?
Mm.
So it was, I mean, of course, the corporate world, I was not happy. Even though I was doing some great projects, like some amazing project in the corporate world. I was a business analyst for a while. I loved it. But then again, I just didn't feel any like I was just going for the checks. I was just going to make the bread and butter. You know what I mean? And I just didn't, I don't know. I was not happy. So coming to the nonprofit it was also a shock. I mean, at the beginning, like I was really, going all out and just like delivering and just like, eventually I felt the burn. There were some challenges, institutional challenges. Nonprofits are not the same. So it did make me, I had good mentors. Definitely, I had Brother Samir from Darij. I had other mentors who really guided me. Dr. Hilmi, who like that weekly halakha, that tarbiyah process of mass really helped me shape myself and stay in line. Otherwise, I would have quit nonprofit a long time ago because working in our community, it is not easy, especially when you come from the corporate lifestyle. Like that
Yeah.
email professionalism, showing up on time, and people keeping like people when they say something they'll do it, and then you come to the community and you're like completely chaotic, right? Nobody comes to the
Right.
people are late. Uh, like the people say, Inshallah, I'll be there. I'm like, okay, he'll be there. And you're just waiting, like this person doesn't show up. Right? Event starts late. Nobody, it's just, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what is going on? Right? Are we not working for God? Like the highest, shouldn't we have the highest,
Mm.
potentials and be professional? And it was a big shift, but I personally enjoyed it. I loved it. I mean, I would never go back to the corporate world. Like God,
Inshallah. So
God
tell
have.
me, you spoke a little bit about your experience. You're kind of like working through developing a program with Mass. What is your vision for the ideal youth director position across the country?
I, like that's a good question because like literally I have this ambition, I have this dream where I want to be able to create an institution where we develop youth workers professionally. Like when I say professionally, I want young people, a lot of young professionals who work in the corporate world and they're inside, they're not happy. They want to do the dot work. Right? They just don't know how to make that transition, right? So when I make the transition, like I personally took like good 20,000 hit on my salary just to take a chance at this, right? And a lot of, I'm
Mm.
not sharing this to like, I'm not boasting about it. I'm just saying that because I was so passionate, I was like, let me just give it a try. I took a chance to the point where like that was made up for me. That like what I took hit for maybe 2 years. Like in 2 years, the way I proved myself, like mashallah, Allah put a barakah on it, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of young, like I feel a lot of young professionals who are in the corporate world making their 70s, 80s, 90s, even six-figure salary, right? It's not easy to quit that and come to the community and do work in the masjid. Like, what are you doing here? So my ambition is really create and institutionalize this youth work. And this is why I'm frustrated with a lot of, mashallah, the relief organizations are doing amazing work in the community, but millions are being raised and it's not being utilized or invested in our youth. And every masajid will make the same claim. And even like, our own organization will make claim like, oh, we're all about the youth. I'm like, okay, show me the number. If you show me the number, if you show me a report and tell me how much did you invest in the youth, human resource and the youth development, I'll tell you if you're serious about it in the organization or not. So like my ambition is to really change that dynamic in the masajids and institutions saying, can we really work towards building youth directors and, youth workers, mentors that are really going to have a impact and shape our next generation of Muslims. So I'm hoping to, we're obviously launching the Muslim Youth Ministry behalf of Mass Youth National. We want to become the go-to institution for all youth work development. I'm talking about like training for youth workers, right? Executing signature projects, like even offering youth directors opportunities to different masajids. Like every week I get an email or text message, do you have a youth worker for me? Can you train our youth? Like, there's so much, this job is so in demand. Like I tell some of the young professionals, I look at some of those guys who are studying, let's say in Qalam or other places, and I'm looking at them, I was like, guys, you don't belong in corporate world, right?
Mm.
But then there is a problem with like a lot of young professionals where they get so academically caught up. Like for example, there are a lot of students who graduate from Al Azhar University or like Medina University. They come here and they're so focused. It's just they just want to teach. I'm sitting there like, okay, like you get so caught up with this like straightforward process of doing things, you are not connecting with the youth generally in the ground, even though they're from here, they're contextualized, right? But
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
that knowledge doesn't transform into reality.
Hmm.
And I think so. I've talked about this one time where when he first graduated from Al Azhar, like he was giving fatwas, and then the ground really hit him, right? Even if we see in our community, like if you look at Yasser Qadi's lecture in the 90s versus now, it's like complete different, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize that like when you're on the ground, it's a transformation, it's a different knowledge transforms, right?
Hmm.
And whatever you learn, now it's practically you see it, your mind changes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I think that's definitely a training that we're in need of. I think the on hands-on training is in high demand. Um, Transitioning a little bit, I guess, to the relationships within an institution when you're working with a board or you're working with um, maybe youth directors in your position. How do you manage the kind of the hierarchy within an organization like Mass?
So I'm gonna go back to give an example from Dar Hijra community that I worked, right? I really had a great board members, man. Like out of 9 people, I think like 8 or 7 or 8 of them were like completely visionary. They thought things through for the future, right? I mean, when I did an event, the board members showed up and I made them show up. Like I made them tell them like, I need you to come here and talk to some of the young professionals here. And I had like, some Brother Hussein Go, Dr. Sama mentioned, all these guys, like they would actually show up in the event and talk to the young professionals, like, what do you guys want to tell us? Right. And there was a point where I had a bunch of these guys who grew up in the community, right? I got them in the basement. I was all right, guys, this is where our youth lounge is. And I called the youth, these leaders, these board members, including Sheikh, right? And I said, all right,
Yeah.
talk. Because both of you are complaining about each other. One complains the youth are not doing anything. The other one complains, oh, like the elders are always leading. They don't let us give us the reign. I was like, okay, it's very simple. Can we communicate?
Communicate. Yeah.
Right? Just like sit. Can we just talk? There is not a platform that you'll see in the community. They don't even like it's an assumption almost made. It's almost like uswas, right? Like
Hmm.
Shaitan is like almost uswasing you, like, oh, this is how this like, okay, can we talk? Like
Talk
big
about it head on.
talk is the communication. So the like literally these board members came and they're like, all right, we don't want to hear from you guys. We want action items. Give us a project proposals. Put it together. Tell us what you want, right?
Hmm.
And literally, the board members followed up with me in 2 weeks later. I was like, "Where's my project proposal?" I was like, "Well, these are the young professionals. They're the one who complain. I'm going to follow up with them." I followed up, nothing.
Hmm.
Right? The complaints are so like it's so. I think in terms of working with leadership is important because some leaders will step up and say, "Okay, let's do it." Well, then what? Right?
Hmm.
So I think this bridge between the next generation and the previous generation of leaders, we really need to communicate and understand where we are good at what. So the leaders have the wisdom and money, the young
Right.
generation energy, right,
Yeah.
and the power. So can we work together? It has to be collaborative process. It cannot be like, oh, next generation taking over. We have to. I don't like this word of next generation taking over. Take over what? What are we taking over? Please tell me. The
Right.
mess or the good, right? What are we taking? So I think
Yeah.
working with the leadership, like first I always identify, like especially when I got into the Hijra community, I really saw the executive director, Brother Samir, very proactive, very like even he's like he mentored me a lot and I appreciate it. Like because of him, I was able to get my master's done in nonprofit because he literally taught me the things practically, right?
Mm.
So I think that mentorship from leadership is important. Leadership has to be involved in the ground and identifying that in your community. There are definitely leaders who are involved and active. You just need
Hmm.
to go talk to them
Hmm.
as a young person, right? So when I'm dealing with the leadership level, I really thought I saw Dr. Ayman like really active, mashallah. Like he had that transformative process. Like he thinks outside the box, right? It's not so I really connected with him. So I put my trust into this position, like, you know what, this is the next move I want to make because I'm comfortable with his leadership and the board members' leadership.
Hmm.
Right? We have this communication. They understand the American context. And then you have the ground youth workers, right? Of course, there's always a communication issues between the workers and the leaders. Like every
Hmm.
time I visit a chapter, like, oh, they don't listen to us. and it's just, it goes back to a very simple process, subhanallah. And this is the corporate world that gave me that experience. Email, communicate, sit down, just talk it out, come up with the process. Sometimes it's just a simple process is not there. There's a huge disconnect from the leaders and the young people, right? And that's why the nonprofit has to be institutionalized. We have to do things at a professional level, all right? And not just like, oh, inshallah, brother. And like, no. Like sometimes I'm emailing some of the youth directors. I'm like, why do you have a Gmail? Where's your like organizational email?
Right.
Where's the basic trainings that you are lacking that is not giving you that mindset of the, the corporate world, at least in a
Right.
nonprofit sector?
Right. Yeah. And you see in corporate world, people are, like you said, they show up on time. They're always like, please, thank you. They're gonna get to that as soon as possible. I'm sorry. Let me try to make that up for you. Dinner's on me. And
Yeah.
these are all sunnahs, these,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
These are also, and it's interesting the way we grew in Dar Hijra and our team. Like we went from $25,000 to $30,000 budget to almost $250,000 budget a year in our youth department. I was the full time and I had two other part time. Right, we went from like two full timers with Sister Aisha Prime and five other part timers working for us. And those five other part timers that came in, we didn't just let them sit in the youth department. We saw where they would be best fit and we pushed them to grow in a different area of the
Mhm.
Dar Hijra. Now they're like we became the incubator for the institution, almost like bringing in young people, seeing their potential and really push them to the certain area, right? Or certain organization. And they start picking, it's almost like, again, it was an incubator almost. And alhamdulillah, because leadership understood the need. And I didn't just go ask for, I didn't just, of course, I can't just be like, oh, I need to hire somebody. Well, let me put a proposal together. Let me put a job description together. Let me just put a nice, and then I can email it to my executive director, like make sure it's recorded. I can mention it to him because I have a one-on-one weekly check-in with him, right? I have access to the board members.
Mhm.
So there's this process that we had in Darajah that's it's still working, alhamdulillah, and they're doing mashallah great, right? It transformed because of the small process and policies installed.
Mhm.
So I think this is what a lot of nonprofits don't have or they don't care to really implement, right? And again, our youth workers, like we made sure we met weekly. We made sure that we gave them appreciation dinner. Like end of the year, I made sure that any youth who worked with us for at least a year and a half, I pushed them out. I was all right. Now I have to bring somebody else in, right? You're all set. You're not going to be in here in youth department to go work with outreach, go work with social service, go work with communication. And then we recognize them yearly with a plaque. Like we literally would give plaques like for your, dedication, because it's all about reassuring and re-empowering them, saying, look, you're valuable. What you're doing is valuable, but you can do better. And here's how you do better. Creating platforms, creating avenues. And that came from support of the leadership from me to do this. I couldn't do this by
Mhm.
myself. And
Right.
that's what a lot of chapters, a lot of institutional, a lot of massages is missing, because they expect the youth director to come and change everything. Like, no, it's a group effort. It's a combined effort. It's a community job to
Mhm.
develop our young people, right?
All right. And projects. I want to talk about projects. I mean, we're always like, what project do you want to do as a youth, or what projects are you going to put forward as a youth director? And even recently, I've been hearing a lot of people talking about project managers. We need project managers
Yeah.
to be running it. So, give me the lowdown. What kind of projects do we need to be pursuing, and why do so many of our projects that we set up tend to fail?
So it goes back to institutionalizing the projects, right? For example, so this is a it's a fresh issue. So anytime
Yeah.
we do a project in, like, for example, like when we started Fast and Learn in Warren, right, in 2006,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
event is still running today, right?
Mm.
Alhamdulillah, it
Yeah.
is still taking place. And I'm sometimes sitting back, I was like, wow, man, either barakah or the process we set up,
Mhm.
right? So we institutionalize. So I didn't just take everything within me. Like just because I started the project or a few other brothers started, it doesn't mean we're the only one responsible, right? We taught other people how to do this and make sure there was
Mm.
a documentation available,
Mm.
right? So we started the same thing in Dar Hijra and it's still happening. We started in Dar Hijra in 2014, Fast and Learn. We started with like 5 or 10 people. Consistency is the key to your project success. Even if
Mm.
2 people show up in your event, you still have to do it. There's a lot of like in-depth understanding behind it. First, okay, so going back to the project, I think let's look at a big picture. The project that you should be investing on are the projects are focusing on your targeted audience. So identify that. Are they high school, young professionals? What is your target audience? Identify that, number one. Second, when you start a project, right? Always start writing the objective of your project. What's the objective here? What's the goal? Is it meeting your organization's expectation? And align that project according to that. Third, documentation is very crucial. How are you going to do this project? Every little details. When we start a Fast and Learn, we say, okay, we want to make this program successful. Alhamdulillah, we started with like maybe 5 or 10 people showing up. It was a high school project, right? I went to MSAs and invited them to come in. We provided food and high schoolers, combined perfect combination, right? We had a youth lounge. We started getting new equipments, pool, tables, ping pong, everything you can think about. Food, games, 10, 20 minutes lecture, that's it. But games and everything else is an hour and a half. So that project started growing. Now, how do you improve this project? One is look at the quality assurance. Can we get one of these high schoolers to come and participate? Yeah, absolutely. They would love to take initiative. Let's make one of them as a project manager for 1 week or 1 month, right? They take initiative, they invite, right? And their MSA gets credit because their MSA is saying, oh, we did a project, right? We have an event happening.
Right.
The next thing is quality assurance. Constantly improving this program, from flyer to bringing different speakers every week. Like we never brought same speakers. Every week there was a different speakers. And some speakers will repeat maybe 6 months later if they're really requested by the audience. Audience decided, right? Next things, of course, in the project, in the quality assurance, is like even like we had people set by the door entrance because we had enough volunteers. When people come in, we say salam to them, we welcome them, we make sure the youth lounge is clean, organized, we make sure like everything's precisely, perfectly put together. If somebody didn't take their shoes, if somebody put their shoes, you know how it is, shoes on masjid, right?
Yeah.
They put their shoes on the shoe rack, the volunteer at the door or the host, they would take the shoes and put on the shoe rack without saying or making any fuss.
SubhanAllah.
Right? That level of welcoming, like, and of course, there's other level of quality assurance in the project. For example, we always started our program on time. We never waited for the latecomers. When we said 6 o'clock, we started 6 o'clock. And I learned this through training, going back to having resources, right? So Oak Tree, but Al-Matil taught me a lesson. He was like, hey, when are we starting? Because he was a speaker. I was like, oh, we're just waiting for a few more people to come. He was like, no, start right now. We said 6 o'clock, we start 6 o'clock. And he taught me a valuable lesson. Right. And he was like, and then I realized that he's right. People who came on time, we should respect their time. Right?
Right.
And then I got into the spiritual side of it, like, well, angels are here. So let's start. Right?
Right. Yes.
If Allah is sending angels, I rather, like, even my own staff will sit down and listen to the speaker and benefit. It's okay, let's start on time. We start. And we told people, sometimes people came, oh, we missed the lecture. It was like, well, it was 6 o'clock. We announced that, it was 6 o'clock. And then people start coming early to the program.
Right.
And then we took program to a different level. Okay, we asked the audience, what do you want to talk about? We serve their needs instead of we're serving what we think they need. Right? So they requested speakers, they requested topics, and in between that, we embedded the lesson. Took it to the next level. We said we designed it. Even some speakers, they love to talk, man. Some imams just want to talk because they just give them mic, mashallah, like unlimited. Right. iPad, nonstop, repeat. Yeah. We cut the microphone off if the speakers don't stop within 20 minutes. We tell the speakers, all right, this is it. There's a host only focusing on speaker. Yeah. All right. Quality assurance, volume 7. What's the version 7? We even serve the speakers chai. Make sure the speakers get cards. Make sure the speakers like recognize, even a small token, appreciate their time. Sending emails in advance to the speaker, what the topic should be, what's the audience is, because some speakers don't ask. When I invite a speaker to come ask, like, speak, I want the speakers to ask me questions about who are you talking to? Why am I bringing you in here? Right? So we start creating templates saying, all right, we're going to reach to the speakers and tell them what time they should be coming, what the topic should be, and how much time they have, and when do they end. Right? They have to end on a certain time. If the audiences want to continue their discussion, then we can continue. But otherwise, we have a framework we work with, that's it. Right? So it's a 20-minute khatira, 10 minutes interactive discussion, that's it. Done. 30 minutes, no more. It's attention span. Know your audience. So every time, every month, every week, we constantly upgrade it from 15 people showing up. Sometimes we had 95 people coming to our Thursday event called Fast and Learn. Right? And we didn't keep it the same framework. We changed speakers. We did service projects. We did, let's say, interfaith projects. I mean, it grew, man. That was like the highlight of our Thursday out of nowhere evening. So nobody fasted. Not many people fasted because it was Fast and Learn, but it's okay. Yeah. Then we started going to a restaurant saying, can you give your leftover food? And we had this one restaurant giving leftover food, and man, these kids came and ate.
Mhm.
Food is a very crucial point. So, anyways, how
Yeah.
do you sustain a project? You look at the quality assurance. You look at the audiences that are benefiting from it. It's all about customer service in a way, right? And
Mhm.
third, you also look at the documentation policies and procedures. So that way, if I leave, if I something happens to me, Mohammed K doesn't show up, or something accident, I'm dead, right? How is the project going to
بعد
continue?
الشر, yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
so project needs to continue because there's a policy and procedure and documentation. There's other people are doing it too. I'm not the only guy holding the
Mhm.
key in the rain.
Mhm.
That's bad leadership.
Right.
So when you see when if you as a youth director or a youth worker or anybody in the community, when you leave, the entire institution falls apart. That is a part that's you didn't do a good job on it, right? And I was scared when I left, like I left Darusha, but mashallah, Muhammad Oda has been doing really good. He's picking up. Like even this COVID-19 was a blessing because you're able to get international speakers to come to the fast and learn Thursday,
Mhm.
right? He got Chef Jeff Joe Fred,
Go Bradford.
as yeah, Bradford coming in. He has like other. I was like, man, you're doing good, mashallah. But I couldn't even bring those speakers.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
SubhanAllah. So I guess we'll try to wrap this up, but I
One
want
more
you
thing I want. One more
go
thing I
for it.
want to
Go
add
for it.
in
Yeah.
terms of program that we should be focusing on is mentorship.
Mm.
Like we started this program in Darujika Rising Souls, and man, that picked up really good. Like we started with 10 kids, 20, and then we ended up with 65 kids, middle schoolers signing up in third year because this mentorship was really crucial.
Mhm.
Your community is all about relationship. If you pray next to somebody, you don't know their name, you've been praying there for like 10 years, that's not community.
Mhm.
That's like going to a chai spot, getting your sip on and carrying it on. That's not community. Community, it's engaging. It's about conversation. It's about relationship. So focus on building on project, investing on project that is going to build relationship because your people are going to eventually come back and give back. So I
SubhanAllah.
wanted to.
So I want to ask one last question before we wrap up here. If there is a young brother or sister who is thinking about doing youth work or becoming youth director, what advice do you have for them?
I mean, it depends on where they're at with their educations or in their career field, right? I mean, if you really, if like specifically, like especially if you studied Islamic studies, I feel like there's a huge lack of project management or that ground level of work, right?
Mhm.
My advice is like, be just get involved in your local masjid. One thing I tell people is like that. Sometimes you come to the board member and say, listen, I want to do this. I'm going to take ownership of it. And you're going to be doing a lot of work at the beginning, right?
Mhm.
But you build a team, you build a sense of belonging. So I think being in the ground, even if you're the only one doing the project, do it. It gives you more experience and
Mhm.
opportunity.
Mhm.
Second, you can reach out to me. I'd love to
Yeah.
mentor them. I'd love to guide them. There's massages looking for people, assessing and all that. We're trying to create that institution where we want to be able to train youth workers. But training is not just like me giving you khatir and lecture. Training happens on the ground as you're executing. That's the best training. That's transformation,
Mhm.
right? I can give you lecture. I can tell you how to run project. That's information.
Mhm.
You need to be transformed in the ground, on
Mhm.
the ground, right? So I think being involved with a specific community, if you're already involved, I would love to mentor these future youth directors and workers. And guess what? Let me just say this: you can make six-figure salary as a youth director. Like I'm not kidding you. Like
Yeah.
you can make six-figure salary as a youth director. Some of the massages is willing to pay you that much.
Mhm.
Like I have a message, and even in Texas, offering like depending on the household income, average salary within the state, like 55, 65,000, $75,000 positions,
Mhm.
right? But again, like you can't just go check. Oh, I want to be a youth director. Like okay, you gotta build your portfolio, you gotta build your skill set,
Your resume, yeah.
your resume. And if you're just because you're an MSA doesn't mean it makes you a good youth director, right? It's more mentorship. It's a self development too. And you don't have to have an Islamic education to be like I didn't go study in Azhar University, but I took initiative on learning basics and fundamentals, make sure I stayed in touch, and I made sure I stay in my lane.
Mm,
I'll
yeah.
never give a khatir like, oh, the sheikh, like I'm staying in your lane is crucial.
Yeah.
I stay in my lane. I'm in the pride. Like if you want to ask about a fifth question, I'll do my best to tell you what it is. But here's the chef; he can tell you more.
Right.
I'll make sure the chef doesn't dump too much on you, and I'll make sure you're balanced. Because sometimes like the chef will give a crazy answer. I'm sitting there like, he's not ready for that.
Right.
Let's go
Yeah.
slow, right? Let's balance out. Like
Yeah.
so, like we have that. I have that balanced approach, but I will stay in my lane, man. You'll never see me give fatwa.
Yeah. MashaAllah,
No,
mashallah. And
I'll give
if
fatwa.
people want to get a hold of you, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, how can we stay in touch with you?
Man, like I prefer everybody follows on Mass Youth National. You can message me there. I can always give my number. It's not a problem. I'm sure I'm not gonna get 20,000 texts. There are very limited youth workers.
Yeah.
586. I should have my number.
Inshallah, inshallah, why not? Yeah, we
Five,
can.
586.
Oh, snap. Give me a
Oh
second, bro.
yeah, I have no problem, bro. I got the work calling me.
We don't
I
play
got
games here. Yeah,
zero
let's.
four 7757. No, I'm not playing. Like when I say let's get to work, like and if you call me, I'm like it's gonna be a warning.
Mm-hmm.
I will make you work. I will get to the like. Don't just call me for a conversation to like one of those pep talk. I'm not about like let's get to a point. Let's get to work, and I
Yeah.
love to work with you, right? And then when I say if you tell me like let's meet up at this time and you don't show up, I'm sorry. I'm gonna drop this whole case.
So
And anyway,
what's your phone number then?
586
586
604
586.
7757. I'm about to regret this maybe later. Also, like I have Facebook page, Mohamad Kibria. You can reach out to me. Instagram, there's the new page that I have. I'm building on my content is internal sanctuary.
All the Mass Youth Nationals Instagram page.
And the Instagram page is internal sanctuary.
Internal.
All right.
Inshallah. Perfect. Thank you so much for Mohamad for your time.
Thank you for doing this. May Allah accept from you.
Ameen. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.